Hello, my name is Brian Ship. I am a gifted and talented social emotional counselor at Parmalee Elementary. This is my fifth year in that role and my eighth year as a counselor. Today I'm going to be presenting on executive functioning. So let's see how my executive functioning is doing using the Google Meet here. I'm going to go ahead and attempt to share my screen. See how that goes here. And all right, and hopefully this is working and you can see right there, we are gonna be talking about executive functioning. So our agenda, what we're gonna really be covering today is understanding executive functioning, what that means, key executive functioning skills, understanding strengths and weaknesses, and also share some different tools to have in your toolbox to help your children with their executive functioning. To get going, I really like this video. I think it does a really good job of just kind of giving an overview on what executive functioning is and how it's so different for different people and for different children.
Science tells us that brains, minds, are built, not born. And at the center of this dynamic architecture are a set of skills called executive function and self-regulation.
Children's self-regulation and executive function are key ingredients in their lifetime performance. It's not just about learning language or learning numbers or learning colors.
We have to be able to work effectively with others, with distractions, with multiple demands. These actually are skills that contribute to the productivity of the American workforce.
Just look at your shapes. What should you have done next?
Educators, I think, are looking for just this sort of thing. And when we describe what we mean by executive function, they say, yes, that's it. That's exactly, the problem. These kids, they can tell me these rules, but they can't actually use them.
What's this? A toolbox.
A toolbox.
What is executive function?
Safety goggles.
Safety goggles. Probably the best way to think about it is sort of like an air traffic control system in the brain. Just like an air traffic control system has to manage lots of airplanes going on lots of runways and really exquisite timing and so on, a child has to manage a lot of information and avoid distractions. We really think of it as involving working memory and inhibitory control and mental flexibility. Take a situation where a child is having to take turns. So first of all, the child has to have inhibitory control. The child has to be able to stop whatever he or she is doing and let the other child take a turn.
Cute.
But when it's your turn again, you also have to remember what it is you're supposed to be doing. So that pulls on working memory. If the children who are taking the turns after you do something unpredictable, you have to be able to adjust what you're going to do next. And that requires mental flexibility. Children who are struggling with these capacities often look like children who just aren't paying attention, or children who are deliberately not controlling themselves.
If you don't have self-regulation, you act out and the teacher puts you in timeout, and so then you miss part of the learning that's going on, and then you are more upset because you're behind, and so you act out, and so you get this downward spiral.
How does executive function develop?
6, 7, 7. And plus 4.
In little children, and even in the infant and toddler years, you begin to see the roots of executive functioning skills. What's going on in our brains is unbelievably intricate and complicated.
The prefrontal cortex, or the front third of the brain, is important for executive function. But it's more than just prefrontal cortex. This region doesn't act alone. It's involved in controlling your behavior through its interactions with all other parts of the brain. The brain goes from a situation where you've got nearest neurons communicating very strongly with each other and ignoring the rest of the brain, to these widespread networks that are connecting these different areas. Executive function changes over the life course. It improves radically over the first few years.
I got a match prime.
It continues to improve throughout adolescence. It's not until early adulthood that you have the adult-type networks that are very strongly activated that connect different brain regions together.
Let's take notes.
Also, we believe that executive functions can be trained.
It's just like going to the gym. So the more you practice in these areas, the stronger the capacity is likely to become because you're hoping to strengthen those neural connections.
You're at 24.
Slowly but surely, you're going to be able to step back, and that child's going to go into the world with these skills where they can get along with other people, change rules, and they can be flexible, and they can accomplish new things, and they're unafraid.
I got bit by my dog in my arm. Oh dear.
If we don't learn these skills during the childhood and adolescent years when they're coming online, we are really ill-equipped as an adult to hold a job, to maintain a marriage, to raise children, to get along with each other, to basically be part of a civil society.
You're okay.
So as you can see, kind of as the video was explaining, we all have executive functioning skills, but we kind of take these skills for granted. And everyone has struggles to varying degrees. With our kids, we see a lot of times children with learning disabilities or that have ADHD specifically have struggles with executive functioning. Executive functioning skills, they come into play in three broad areas: learning, behavior, and social situations. And you can kind of see from this diagram that it just kind of breaks it out into different areas, holding your attention, being able to manage, the mental state, effort, right, is not the main part of it all necessarily, right? Regulating our emotions, memory, and then there's metacognition. And I do a lot of work with metacognition when I run my small groups and also when I do classroom presentations, just because metacognition is thinking about your thinking. And since all of our brains operate differently and we all have different levels of executive functioning, I just think it's really important for people to understand what their thinking is like and how they can increase those skills so that they do have the executive functioning skills that they need to thrive. So all about relationships, right? And looking at this, I kind of think this diagram is sort of more for teachers and educators. But there were a couple that I really kind of wanted to highlight just in working with your own children. I really like number 4, share about your own life. Maybe you were the parent that also had executive functioning struggles and being able to share that and different methods that you've used to overcome those. And then I also really like number 10, right? Apologize when you mess up, because we're all human. And when kids can see that we make mistakes, I just think that helps strengthen their character, and also see that just because they don't have great executive functioning now doesn't mean that will always be the case. Here's kind of a funny little comic here. Don't pay enough attention in class. At least I think that's what she said, right? Typical of a kid with some executive functioning skills. Can't exactly remember that working memory. Not quite developed yet. I like this executive skills questionnaire. Obviously, we are doing this learning asynchronous, so we're not going to be able to click on this and do this, but it's 36 different questions, and this will be available to everybody with this presentation. So you can do this later, and I think it's great to take this questionnaire yourself and then have your child take it and kind of be able to look through and see where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are and how you can help each other increase that. Habits and routines are key to having students feeling a sense of control. And so that's what we're going to get into a little bit now, as some of those habits and some of those strategies that we can really take advantage of. So one strategy that I have taught with small groups and then also with whole classes is Mime It. This is a Sarah Ward strategy. She's an executive functioning guru. She's trained our whole school. And yeah, she just has some amazing insight into that. The reason that this works is because when we think of executive functioning, right, you want to tell your kid what to do, clean your room, do your homework, right? But actually executive functioning starts far before our verbal skills, before our language skills. So it doesn't start with verbal memory. It starts with our temporal spatial nonverbal memory, which develops, like, as I said, before our language skills. So this is just one kind of thing that you can start to help your kid with, and it's called Mime It. So it's really just kind of visualizing things, right? So you make an image. What will it look like? What will it look like when my homework is all completed? What will I look like? Hopefully I'll be smiling because I'm done, and then I get to move on to maybe some more fun activities. How am I moving? What are you moving? What is it, really getting into that visualization? Do you have pencils, paper? What do I feel like? Maybe it's a struggle at first because math is difficult for me if you're like me. But wow, once I get that concept, it's just a great feeling that I was able to do that. And then the it is the if then, and we'll talk a little bit more on the next slide about that. If something happens, then what do you do? Because of course, when we are planning for things, it doesn't always go according to plan, and then having positive self-talk. So we can kind of look through a situation here, right? You could have, and I'm sure this seems very common for lots of parents, right? It's 7:15. We have to be ready to go by 7:30. Quick, go to your room and finish getting ready for school. Okay, well, that's, easier said than done. As parents know, it doesn't quite happen like that, especially with only 15 minutes. So these are just some strategies. You could use the if then and some positive self-talk. And these are things you can practice in the moment. Hopefully, you have more than 15 minutes before you're getting ready for school. But then you can also just talk about things, after the situation. What could they have done maybe a little bit better? How could they have planned a little bit more? So examples of this, if you can't find the outfit you're looking for, then what? Right? Process through that with your child. Well, then wear something else. And you know what? You'll have more time after school and you can actually spend the time looking for that outfit, and then you'll get to wear that outfit the next day. If you can't find your homework that's due today, then what? That could be a big one. Different strategies. Maybe if your parent was working, if you as a parent were working with your kid and they did the homework, you can write a little note to the teacher. You could do an email, right? And then not the end of the world, okay? Again, we'll have time later after school. We'll find the homework and most likely you will still be able to turn that in. And then self-talk. What can you say to yourself in these situations, right? And this is just so important to practice because when we don't have the positive self-talk, that can turn negative very easily, right? So you have all these different things on our positive self-talk flower, right? I believe in myself and my abilities. I can control